Hey, friends. I have a conglomeration of ideas today from different writers and different folks going back and forth, and I'm just kind of mishmashing them together because they're ideas that I like. So I hope you find them interesting as well. I was watching a show the other day. Bill Maher was the guest on the show. And one of the things that he said really struck me, and I wrote it down immediately. And now he was talking about how, all the different things going on in the world and, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, he said, Earth is a timeshare. And it really kind of hit me. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's true. And it also made me think about another author who we've talked about in the past, Camus, who said that death is a blessing for the world. And that, of course, means that, if human beings were around too long, the devastation that they would probably have is immense. I look at the research that's going on out there in longevity and the things that they're doing. And they're saying that within the next 30 years, people will be able to live until they're 200 years old. But at what level of existence will they have, number one? And number two, what about the consumption in resources? It takes a long time for a human being to learn enough things in order to be productive. Are people, especially the wealthy, going to be able to have all of that money and do nothing for 200 years? And I just wonder about that. It's kind of a scary thought, right? That they would be able to, that human beings would be able to exist and not produce. And as you get more and more people existing longer and longer and longer, and if they're not productive, what kind of impact is that going to have on the environment and on the rest of humanity? It reminds me of, remember that old movie, The Time Machine, and how way in the far future, human beings break off into two separate species, and one of them eats the other. All right. The Morlocks are the ones that live underground, and they eat the Eloi who live above ground. And so when you think about that, you're like, oh, geez, that's kind of gross, right? But are we progressing towards something like that? I don't know. Anyway, Earth is a timeshare. You get what you get. Next, Einstein said, God does not play dice. Which then Stephen Hawking later responded to, and he said, not only does God play dice, but he often throws them where they can't be seen. Of course, meaning that, Einstein was saying that, hey, this all ain't random. And Hawking's saying, well, Some of it might be random. We don't know because we don't understand all the things that went into the way things are, right? Einstein also said, if the answer is simple, it came from God. Meaning that, of course, if it just pops into your head, where'd that come from? That epiphany that you have. You know, Einstein said that everything that he ever came up with, he came up with in a dream. Gotta love Einstein. Jumping over to Galileo, and I know I've made this quote many times before, and I've put it in some of the books that I've written. Galileo said, I do not feel obligated to believe that the same God who has endowed us with sense, reason, and intellect has intended us to forego their use. But how often do you see people out there? They don't have the sense God gave geese. They certainly do not reason. They have no concept of critical thought. They hear something, they parrot it back to others because they think what was said over here was intelligible and had a point, and instead of using that to coalesce and create new ideas, blah, 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 they just say it out the other side. No intellect involved. I see it all the time. Here's one, an interesting thing for my Eskimo friends up in Alaska. You're going to love this one. An Eskimo asked a priest, if I did not know about your God and sin, would I go to hell? The priest replied, well, no, not if you didn't know what you were doing was a sin. The Eskimo followed. Then why in God's name did you tell me? Isn't that awesome? And of course, it ties back to so many things that people out there will try to tell you is a sin. It's not a sin. Next one. There are some who believe that if you are talking to God, you are praying. And that, if he replies, you are schizophrenic. I love that one. I guess I'm a little schizophrenic. Next one by a gentleman named Hubbard. God does not look positively on you based on the medals, the degrees, or diplomas that you have earned, but instead on the scars of perseverance. Then this one by Harriet Beecher Stowe. I did not write it. God wrote it. I merely took dictation. I often feel that way. So many of the things that I've written, my novels and such, I feel like I took dictation it just came into my head, especially if it came to me in a dream and I woke up and I had to write things down. It's literally like I was taking dictation. Hans Christian Andersen said, "Every man's life is a fairy tale written by God." And I know that we have talked about this concept ad nauseum. But yeah, we exist inside of a dream, inside of a dream. Remember, was it Edgar Allan Poe who said that? And so many others with the same kind of a concept, just a different way of saying it. We are manifest of the thought of God. Literally everything was dreamed into existence. And last but not least, God first planted a garden, and indeed, it is still the purest of pleasures. I love that. I love to be out in the garden too. Getting your hands in the soil. Just the smells, the tactile sensations, listening to the birds, all of those things are nothing but awesome. It reminds me of, what something Thomas Jefferson said. He said that there is no sprig or sprout of grass that doesn't draw me in, that doesn't fascinate me. And I can't remember the exact word that he used. But everything that grows really kind of tantalized Thomas Jefferson. And I guess Francis Bacon as well. So I think of those things that bring me joy. Being out at the lake, doing a little gardening, whatever. And all of those things really kind of bring me closer to the Creator. It almost becomes, for me, a form of prayer. And we all need to pray more. I still attend church services. But if you'll ask me any day where I feel closer to God, is it in a church? Or is it in the woods? I'll tell you right now, it's in the woods. And that's why when Yeats said, and we talked about this in a previous video, "Come away, O human child, to the waters and the wilds." With a fairy hand in hand, for the world's more full of weeping than you can understand. I understand enough to know that I got to get away, get out to the woods and the wilds, the waters, decompress, accomplish prayer, communicate with the Creator, no matter what you call God, and find those ways to create those connections. Digging your hands down into the soil, watching things grow. Those are the things that move you towards God. Make sure that you get a chance to do them. All right, friends, that's enough. I'll chat with you later. Please like, share, subscribe, all of that goodness. And I'll chat with you later. Bye.